Mi último día en la sierra, which is like my last day in the Sierras. So that was a really kind of interesting carving.
So we're going back to the Aspen Groves back here.
At first it was kind of hard. Sort of had to just walk a lot, and then later when the leaves changed, you could find them more easily.
Años. Is that a horse over there too?
I think that's like an animal.
Yeah.
Right.
No, this is definitely some kind of horse, and I think the person that was here scarred away.
R. Martin from Botes.
Oh,
Un hombre valiente pasó por aquí.
He wrote it again. I can't believe that. The way he wrote Potes there is really beautiful.
Yeah, it's sideways.
Yeah. So this guy, R. Martin, I think we think he's French, but his presence back in this grove is extensive. He's carved his name many times in many trees. This one only has the single year of 1981, but a number of his carvings you'll see just a line of years stretching back into the 60s and going forward into the 80s. Yeah, so here we have the same guy, R. Martin, but on the 29th of May, about 100 feet away from where the 28th of May was. R. Martin really liked carving his name.
Okay, yeah, these are familiar.
Oh, here's 1956 as well. So you can see 1956 here, but also where someone crossed out everything that someone else had written. No. It says 1957. Here we have on this side another sort of like testament to loneliness and love. Oh, did you see this one? Oregon. I think that says Aragon.
Aragon.
Aragon. Bess. 1955.
Yeah, I think over there is the one by Aleman, which is of the lady's legs. The one that the cat was?
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, Dan, here it is. That's the other half of it. The figure right here. You remember that one?
No.
Yeah, this is the neck and the arm. It's actually like really clear. Like, that's clearly that's clearly like a figure. The neck.
Yeah, so these are shoulders. Head is here.
Breasts.
Yeah.
Hips probably down here, and then we don't know what else was there. Jimmy? This is my reconstruction over here of this fallen piece. So this was either like a very Americanized sheep herder or just probably a rancher somewhere nearby. I'm assuming it came from here. Kind of looks like similar handwriting. I remember seeing some of these. Yeah, but the crazy thing about this is they're just all rotting away. Can you read it?
Not really.
But so how did they end up being in the Eastern Sierras, and like who owned the sheep that they were herding? Were they their own personal herd of sheep?
It started kind of like a very entrepreneurial type of business where, the Basque had a lot of experience sheep herding, not only in Spain and in southern France, but also a number of them had been sheep herding in Argentina and in Chile. And so essentially the attraction was all of the free BLM land. Free BLM land of the Eastern Sierra basically was just miles and miles of free food for the sheep, so they could run the sheep up into the mountains in the summertime and bring them back to the desert in the winter. And the sheep herders that were here would write and advertise to their cousins and brothers and other family members, telling them in some ways this was very kind of easy money. So there's this kind of attraction to coming to kind of do this with the intention to make a bunch of money and then go back, usually to Spain or to France, which some did and a lot ended up staying. Others came over initially to do things like mining as well, and found that mining was much harder to make a living at, and then wound up in this kind of sheep herding profession. It was interesting too, they would bring each other over and pay for each other's expenses, and then you would sort of work it off as almost like an indentured sheep herder servant. And you would pay eventually your travel expenses of getting out here, and then eventually you'd start getting paid in sheep, and then you would build up your own flock from there, and then eventually start employing other sheep herders as you grew your operation.
Yeah, and then you could own your own sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And largely it's a pretty interesting sort of self-sufficient kind of operation, because the only sheep you're really slaughtering in the end are the ones that are too old to continue migrating, and otherwise you're just shearing the wool and making a lot of money from the wool sales.
So green. Well, they say that they came at the turn of the century, even like out in Bodie, there's a lot of these like Arborglyphs, and there were sheep herders there too, but the ones that we found, I think there was some from like 1918 or 26.
We saw 26, yeah.
Yeah, over closer to Bloody Canyon, there's one from 26 too, and also Lundy Canyon. But I know also the whole thing about, calling in your cousins and telling your relatives to come. Like in the 40s, there was a shortage of men, like after the war. So there was this visa that they were giving to Basque men in particular, or people that they believed would be good in the mountains, like rugged, for this lifestyle, because they just needed more people to be, herding sheep and walking the land. So.
Yeah, there was a number of the Congress people and senators in Nevada and in the Eastern Sierra who were very sympathetic to the sheep herders, and the sheep herders would lobby for these special exemption visas to bring over their family, whereas it would have been much more difficult being another nationality to come. But there was a lot of support for a very long time, until over time it eventually eroded as the ranchers gained more traction with the Congress people.
Yeah, I was just thinking, there's this really cool Arborglyph. It's a writing of, do you remember Mi último día en la sierra, which is like my last day in the Sierras. So that was a really kind of interesting carving that,
There was another one too that said something to the effect of a really courageous man came through here. So these kind of like testaments to their own kind of like sense of self, and sometimes that's about being lonely, and sometimes that's about being very self-impressed by being able to survive this lifestyle.
I like this one. It's got like all the signatures, and then you go up, and you start seeing where the bear's marked into it.
There are other ones as well, talking about kind of traps and pitfalls the sheep herders would encounter, such as places where wolves would hang out, so that these warnings of wolves being around, or someone remarking that they'd lost 7 or 8 sheep to a pack of wolves. So they became in some ways these bulletin boards amongst each other.
Yeah, there was a funny one around here. I remember seeing, I don't know if it's more contemporary, but it kind of it was a bit in that vein. There's often ones where they have arrows, and this one had an arrow and it said bugs that way.
Yeah.
So don't go there, don't sleep
Where
there.
the mosquitoes are.
Yeah, I think it's maybe even around here, I remember. Oh yeah, look, bugs over here. Because, you're like by the water, bugs. It's a bit silly, but, there are these, like, announcements of, like, what it's like around here.
That
Yeah,
one
which
says
makes
cricket,
sense,
too.
because it's by the water.
It's cricket arrow.
1939. And he wrote it in French. Not sure of the name, but it's definitely French Basque.
Yeah, we were.
By the water.
Mm-hmm.